I never expected it, not in a million years. But then again, life has a way of surprising you when you least expect it. I'm 54 years old, though I don't always feel it. People say I'm beautiful for my age, but I can't say I see it myself. Sure, I've still got my looks, my figure, all things considered, but the years leave their marks in subtle ways, fine lines around my eyes, graying at the temples, and a softness that comes from living, not from hiding. And while I might not walk into every room expecting admiration, I do know I've still got something to offer. But I've never thought much about it, until he came into my life. His name is Sam. He's 23, and he lives next door to me in a grand house that always made me feel like I was living in the shadow of something far grander. His villa, an over-the-top display of modern luxury, was a far cry from my modest but comfortable home. We exchanged pleasantries when we saw each other in passing, of course, but I had never given him much thought. I didn't need to. He was just the young, rich guy next door. And I was just, well, me. But one evening, things changed. I was finishing up a book and sipping my tea when I saw him standing in front of my door. "Hey, Mrs. Thomas," he said, his voice warm, but a bit nervous. "I was wondering if you'd like to come over for dinner tonight. I'm making something special, and I thought it might be nice to share it with you." I blinked, not sure how to respond at first. A dinner invitation from him. I hadn't expected that. Not from him. He was young, successful, and had a lifestyle that seemed so different from mine. But then again, I had spent so many quiet evenings alone that the thought of an evening out, even with someone so much younger, appealed to me in a way I wasn't prepared for. "I'd love to," I said, before I even realized the words had left my mouth. I dressed carefully for the occasion, choosing something simple but elegant, just enough to feel like I was treating the evening with respect. I wanted to look nice, but I wasn't about to try too hard. When I arrived at his villa, it was a sight to behold. Sleek, modern furniture, marble countertops that gleamed even in the dim light, and towering windows that opened to a view I could only dream of. Everything about this house screamed wealth, and while it was all beautiful, it felt a little foreign to me. Sam greeted me at the door with a bright smile. His eyes, always kind, seemed more intense tonight, as though there was something he was dying to say. But he didn't. Not yet. "Come in," he said, stepping aside. "Dinner's ready." Inside, the house was warm, the soft flickering of candles casting shadows along the walls. The storm had started outside, rain pelting against the windows with a force that made everything feel cozy, trapped in its own little world. The dinner was delicious. He'd clearly put time into it, and I found myself impressed by how effortlessly he carried himself despite his youth. As we ate, the conversation flowed easily, something I hadn't expected. We talked about everything: his career, my life, our neighborhoods, small talk that somehow felt far from superficial. He made me laugh, and I caught myself forgetting the age difference between us. His presence was magnetic, and the longer I stayed, the more comfortable I felt. The more welcome. After the meal, the storm outside grew stronger. The rain pounded against the windows, the wind howling like some sort of primal beast. I checked the time. It was getting late. I should have gone home, but as I stood to gather my things, Sam caught my eye. "You shouldn't drive in this," he said softly. "It's really bad out there. Why don't you stay here tonight?" I hesitated. It wasn't that I didn't trust him. He was kind and thoughtful, but it felt strange. A young man, alone in his villa, offering to let me stay the night. I hadn't been in a situation like this in years. "I don't want to impose," I said, but my voice lacked conviction. You won't be imposing. I promise." His gaze was firm, yet gentle. It was the kind of look that made me feel both seen and safe. I didn't really know what came over me in that moment. Maybe it was the storm, the soft lighting, or the way he spoke with such confidence and sincerity. But something in me told me it was okay to stay. So I did. As the night wore on, I settled into the guest room he offered. The villa felt quieter now, almost still. I stood by the window, looking out at the storm as it raged in the darkness, and I felt an odd sense of peace. But there was something else too, a strange tension I couldn't quite name. The kind of tension that grows slowly between two people who feel more than they're letting on. I didn't know it then, but that night was going to change everything. The storm continued to pound against the windows, its fury only enhancing the sense of isolation within the walls of Sam's villa. The wind howled outside, rattling the glass, but inside, the atmosphere was warm, and still, almost suspended in time. It was just the two of us now, a 23-year-old man and a 54-year-old woman, sitting in his plush living room, the remnants of dinner still on the table, and an unspoken something hanging between us. Sam had insisted I stay, of course, after the storm had turned into a raging downpour. The roads were slick, and the thunder had cracked so loudly it felt as though the world outside was breaking apart. I had hesitated, but the gentle, reassuring look in his eyes made it hard to say no. So I had agreed, settling into the guest room he offered without fully understanding why. And now, here we were, both sitting in the dim glow of candlelight, the wine flowing between us, the conversation shifting from easy small talk to something far more serious. He poured us each another glass of red wine, his hand steady despite the tension in the air. I watched him as he did so, how effortlessly graceful he was, the soft glow from the candles casting highlights in his dark hair. He was a young man, too young for me, no matter how I tried to deny it. But still, there was something undeniably magnetic about him. The way his smile reached his eyes, the warmth of his voice, the quiet confidence he exuded, despite his youth. As the wine swirled in my glass, I felt the heat of it settling in my chest. I had been holding myself together, keeping my distance, keeping my guard up. But that night, something had shifted between us. There was a brief silence between us now, longer than I expected, as if we were both waiting for something, an opening, a moment of clarity. And then Sam spoke. His voice was low, almost hesitant, but there was no mistaking the sincerity in it. "I've liked you for a long time," he said, and there it was. The words hung in the air, heavier than I expected, like a secret he'd carried for so long, and now it was finally out. I froze. My mind raced as the words spun around me. What? Liked me? I looked at him, and for the first time, I saw him not as my young neighbor or the man who lived next door in a house far grander than mine. I saw him as a man who wanted something from me, something that made my heart beat just a little faster, my breath catch in my throat. He was staring at me now, his gaze open, almost vulnerable, as if he were waiting for my response. I don't understand," I stammered. It was all I could say. My mind was still reeling from the unexpectedness of his words. "Sam, I'm much older than you." "You are," he said, his voice calm, unruffled. "But that doesn't matter. Not to me, anyway." I couldn't help but laugh a little, though it was more out of nervousness than amusement. "You're only 23, I said, my voice shaky. "I could be your mother." He smiled gently at that, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. He wasn't laughing. He was serious. "Yeah, I've thought about that, actually," he admitted, taking a deep breath. "But you know, age is just a number. I don't care about that." What I care about is how I feel when I'm around you. How I feel when we talk, when I look at you, when I see you." He paused, swallowing hard, as if gathering his courage. "I've never been good at hiding how I feel. I can't pretend, and I don't want to." His words, so raw, so vulnerable, left me speechless. For a long moment, I simply stared at him, not knowing how to react. He had put himself out there, laid himself bare in a way I wasn't sure I was ready for. My heart was pounding, and I could feel a nervous flutter in my stomach. I didn't know what to say to him, how to respond. A part of me wanted to laugh it off, dismiss it as some kind of youthful infatuation. But the look in his eyes, the sincerity there, the depth of his feelings, made impossible to dismiss. I don't know what to say," I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. I wasn't angry or offended. I was just overwhelmed. I had never in all my years expected something like this. A young man so full of life, so full of possibility, looking at me with the same kind of intensity I had only ever dreamed of in my younger years. And it wasn't just about the physical attraction, not for him, at least. I could see that now. There was something more in his eyes, something deeper, something real. He leaned forward then, his elbows resting on his knees, his gaze never leaving mine. "I know this is probably a lot to take in," he said quietly, almost apologetically. "I'm not expecting anything. I couldn't keep pretending like I didn't feel this way anymore. I needed you to know." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my emotions. I had spent my entire life building walls around myself, walls that kept me safe from the kind of vulnerability that came with love and desire. Those walls had kept me from feeling too much, from being seen too deeply. And yet here was Sam, stripping those walls away with nothing more than his honesty. I swallowed, struggling to find the right words, the ones that wouldn't hurt him. "Sam, you're young," I said softly. I'm not sure this is something that could work. We're in such different places in life. You got so much ahead of you. I don't want to hold you back." He shook his head, his expression firm, though there was still a softness to it. "I don't see it like that. I don't want to hold back. I just want to be with you, to see where this can go." The honesty in his voice, the intensity in his words, made me pause. My heart had started to race again, but this time it was different. It wasn't out of confusion or fear, but out of something that felt like hope. "I don't know what to do with this," I admitted, feeling vulnerable for the first time in ages. "I don't know what I'm supposed to feel or how to react." Sam smiled softly, the kind of smile that said he understood, that he wasn't asking for anything right now. "You don't have to decide anything. I'm not rushing you. I just needed you to know. Because this, how I feel about you, it's not going away." I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. But for the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to feel something other than fear or doubt. I felt the spark of possibility. And for the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to consider what could happen if I didn't push him away. If I didn't hold myself back out of fear of judgment, of what others might think. If I simply allowed myself to be seen. The storm had passed by morning, leaving behind only the damp traces of its fury. A soft mist hung in the air, creating a calm, almost surreal stillness in Sam's villa. The house, so full of life and conversation just hours ago, now seemed quieter, like it was holding its breath, waiting for something. Maybe waiting for me to find my footing again. I lay there in the guest room, the soft sheets tangled around me, my mind racing with everything that had happened the night before. It was still early, and I could hear the faint sound of birds singing outside, but the events of the previous evening kept playing over and over in my head, each replay only adding more confusion to the mix. Sam's words from last night echoed in my mind like a soft whisper. "I've liked you for a long time." It was still surreal to think about it. Here I was, a woman in her 50s, having lived a full life, having built walls around my heart after years of relationships, experiences, and quiet solitude. And yet, here was this young man, this vibrant, confident man, telling me that he had wanted something more, something that I didn't even know I was capable of offering. I wasn't sure what I was feeling: shock, confusion, excitement, or maybe a combination of all three. But what I knew for sure was that he had looked at me not through the lens of age, but with a depth that made me feel seen in a way I hadn't felt in years. The thought made my chest tighten. How could I possibly feel this way about him? I forced myself to sit up, swinging my legs off the side of the bed. The cold floor beneath my feet grounded me, bringing me back to reality. I stood up and walked toward the window, pulling back the heavy curtains. The view outside was breathtaking, even in the gray light of early morning. The storm had left the world looking fresh, almost reborn. It was a new day, a blank canvas, and yet I felt as though something had already shifted, something within me, something I couldn't ignore. I ran my fingers through my hair and sighed. How had it come to this? I heard the soft sound of footsteps approaching, and before I could turn around, Sam appeared in the doorway, looking like he'd stepped out of a magazine. His hair was tousled from sleep, and he wore a simple shirt and sweatpants that only emphasized his natural good looks. But there was something else about him this morning, something different. He looked tentative, as though he wasn't sure how to approach me now that his confession had been made. "Good morning," he said softly, his voice still carrying the warmth it had the night before, but now it was tinged with a hint of uncertainty. "Good morning," I replied, my voice sounding small, unsure. I didn't mean to wake you." "No, it's okay," he said, stepping into the room. I was awake. "I wanted to check on you." I felt a rush of gratitude for his concern. I didn't want to be alone right now, but at the same time, I wasn't sure if I was ready to face this tension that had developed between us, this strange and powerful pull that was starting to feel like more than just a passing moment. "I'm fine," I said, my voice quiet, and I turned to face him. "Just thinking." He nodded, a knowing look passing between us. He knew I wasn't just thinking about the weather. We stood there for a few moments, neither of us saying anything. Then Sam spoke again, his tone more cautious this time. "Look, I know this isn't exactly easy to process," he said, his gaze steady. "I know I probably caught you off guard last night. I couldn't keep pretending that I didn't feel this way." I swallowed hard. He felt this way, and I didn't know what to do with it. Part of me was still trying to convince myself that I should just push this all away, that it was silly, that it was impossible. But another part of me, the part that I had buried deep down for so long, was waking up. I hadn't felt this scene in so long, not by anyone. "You didn't catch me off guard," I said softly, though my voice trembled a little. I don't know what to do with this." Sam took a step closer, his eyes searching mine, as if trying to read the hesitation that clouded my face. "You don't have to do anything. I'm not asking for anything right now. I want you to know how I feel." I felt a lump form in my throat as I gazed at him, his honesty almost too much to bear. For so long, I had lived a life of quiet, cautious routine, and now this young man was standing in front of me, offering something more. A connection. A possibility. "I'm not used to this," I admitted, my voice shaky. "To someone wanting me like this. someone younger than me. I'm not sure how to accept it." Sam's expression softened, and he stepped even closer. "I know. I'm not expecting you to jump into anything. I just wanted to be honest with you, and I want you to know that I respect whatever decision you make." I felt the tension in my chest loosen slightly. He was right. He wasn't asking for anything more than to be heard, to be understood. And yet, I still couldn't shake the fear that lingered. What would people think? What would my friends think? And more importantly, what did I think about this? "What do you want, Sam?" I asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. He didn't hesitate, his voice steady as he answered, "I just want to be with you. I don't care about the age difference. I don't care about what people think. I care about how I feel when I'm with you." I looked down, trying to gather my thoughts. I had lived a full life, seen my fair share of love, heartbreak, and growth. And in that moment, I realized something that took me by surprise. I had never felt so alive, so connected to someone in a way that was raw and unfiltered. Yes, he was young. Yes, there were differences between us, big ones. But I had spent so long being disconnected from my own desires, my own needs, that I had forgotten what it felt like to be truly seen. The truth was, I wanted this too. But I was scared of how it would change everything, scared of what it meant for me, for him, for us. "I don't know where this is going," I said, finally meeting his eyes. "But I'm not going to pretend I don't feel something, Sam. I do. I just need time." He nodded, his face softening with understanding. "I can give you time. I'm not going anywhere." And for the first time since I had walked into his home, I felt like I was standing at the beginning of something new, something unexpected and maybe even impossible, but also something that had the potential to change everything. "I don't know what this means," I said quietly, "but I want to see where it could go." Sam smiled, his eyes lighting up with a mixture of relief and hope. "We'll figure it out together," he said. And in that moment, I believed him. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel alone.